please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
This is Bazaar Morning Call, live from the CNBC TV18 headquarters in Mumbai.
Good morning. Welcome to Bazaar Morning Call. I'm Lata and with me are Anuj and Sonia. And we begin the most important week as far as economic policy is concerned. It is the budget week. And we have such a huge tailwind behind us. The bulls charge on Wall Street, in Europe and Asia just doesn't ebb. And it is, the important point is it is backed by very good earnings numbers, both in Europe and on Wall Street. This is coming on the back of earnings, and on Japan as well, very good economic data. So it's not surprising that Asia has caught that contagion of the bull rally. In India itself, earnings have been over the weekend a lot to cheer about. It's not just the regular good performers like the Avenue Supermarts or Future Supply. I mean, what I meant is the consumer guys, but even the CV and the infra guys, which is say Shriram Transport and JSPL. JSPL coming out with better than expected numbers clearly is a very important pointer, not just for the steel industry, but also for banks which have lent to it. And therefore, my sense is there is nothing to stop the cheer in the markets as of now. Morning, both of you.
Hi, morning Lata, morning Anuj. I thought you were going to start off with Federer. Okay. I mean, come on.
Well, I could start with Federer. I could start with the IPL taking away giving such a big bounty to young players, or I could start with even the Test match which we won. I enjoyed every moment of it, and it was on a holiday, so I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's just that it was dead rubber, but I think for me, this was one of the best performances that we have seen from an Indian team, out of country. And
60 wickets.
And you know what I really liked about that was post-match. I think Virat Kohli's commentary, that look, the bowlers did so well and the batsmen let them down. But at least in the last match, the batsmen also stepped up. And if I think they get the combination right, then I think in England and Australia, we have a decent chance of not, losing, maybe even drawing series or winning.
What about Federer, Anuj? I mean, what a comeback, right?
Federer right now is laying claim. He is, of course, the greatest of all time as far as tennis is concerned. Men's tennis, by the way. So Serena Williams still, maybe a lot of people believe Serena and Steffi are ahead of him. But Federer, I think, is laying claim to be the greatest athlete of all time, not just the greatest tennis player of all time. There was this article this morning that what he's doing right now is defying all logic.
Yes.
At 37, tennis used to be a sport where at 28, Pete Sampras peaked out at 28. Tennis players rarely lasted till 30, 31. Here's a guy at 37 beating, 10 years.
And after 6 months of injury, by the way, he came out of that.
Yes.
For 4 years, he did nothing, right? It's just in the last 3 to 5
I used to feel so bad when everybody wrote him off and spoke only about Nadal. I'm referring to someone who is sitting on my left.
Even Nadal was written off. So he did remarkably well, and even he has had a bit of a renaissance. So I think let's just say we have been privileged to watch the best tennis generation of our time.
Okay, but I guess we need to get back to the markets. Big week, right? As Lata was pointing out, the budget week. We have some big numbers coming in. I mean, look at the FII buy figures, almost 1,000 crores on Thursday. F&O, we've seen, about 3,000-4,000 crores as well. Anuj, are we looking at going into the budget with new peaks in the market?
Yeah, that would happen. That should happen at the start itself, Sonia. That's now the daily case. Look, the point here is that for today, what do you do? Because, you'll have a big gap up. Again, the time to buy was on Thursday when the market was giving you that dip. Easier said than done, but, that's been the market's verdict, that you buy the dips, you make a lot of money. My sense is that, and, I'm not talking about today's trade. This market hasn't yet seen a parabolic move. I know a lot of people call about correction. The call for correction are actually just hopes for correction in this market. And I'll tell you one thing. We've been talking about the January rally, 4% up for the Sensex. MSCI Emerging Market and MSCI Asia ex-Japan are up 8%. So that way, it's not that, we have done something extraordinary. It's a global risk on which is right now on. And even these FI numbers, if you look at the numbers in a couple of other markets like Brazil or, a couple of other markets.
This looks like a trickle actually.
It looks like, almost you go to a mall. You buy a lot of stuff, and then while you're going out, you say, okay, there's sale going on here, so let me just pick up some stuff here as well. But the SGX Nifty is indicating that we'll start at a new peak. There's a good chance that we might go through a parabola kind of move in February. But today may not be the best time to chase it, because you will already open at all-time high. Today you would want to see if that all-time high is sustaining, after first hour. After first hour in 10 to 11, is there any profit taking, or is this move sustaining? I think that's something that you want to see, because even this FI number also has expiry factor on Thursday. So the way to play this market now is via the large caps. I think that's one point which is very clear. I won't be surprised if today also, by the end of the day, the advanced decline actually starts to favor the declines, because we are now going through a phase where it may not be visible in the index, but it's visible in a lot of stocks. There's a bit of a distribution which is on in the mid caps, even on good days, you see that. So, and they're vulnerable to a sharp knock. So right now, the way to play this market is not go short. You want to buy, but you want to buy quality stocks, large cap stocks. And as I said, there's a good chance that the next phase of this move may squarely belong to the large caps. And that's what you should be focusing on.
Okay, and so many large caps coming out with good numbers, right? The market's going to like that for sure. But we have the big budget later in the week. Before that, you have the economic survey. Lata, generally the economic survey doesn't give out any budget highlights. So is it going to be a big deal for the market?
No, actually, you know, economic survey is a relic of a previous era when people didn't have so much data, and so you had to put all the data on the table for MPs before they judge the budget. So that's the legacy. You know, you don't get a whiff of the budget. The budget is a secret which is done by the finance ministry. This is done by only the chief economic advisor. The two are not linked at all. I wouldn't be surprised if even the chief economist is not privy to some of the things in the budget. But the big number that will come out will be their growth expectations. And to be fair to Dr. Subramaniam, he has been way more accurate than even the Reserve Bank of India. You know, last year he said this year, after the remonetization, we will hit 6.7 to 7.5. I mean, he almost got it right in terms of the third and the fourth quarter GVA numbers, much better than the Reserve Bank's numbers. So I would give a lot of credence to what he says about the expected growth. He's not one of those who flies off the handle. He's a conservative economist who will not overstate the case. And then he'll say something about GST, which also could be very important because he's capable of very good research. He has the means to do a lot of research. How much was GST disruptive this year, and therefore the tax revenues are understated, and therefore how much of a rebound we can expect in terms of GST revenues in the coming year. Those numbers are important because he can do a lot of very good research. Beyond that, everything else will be just academic work. I mean, I assume he will talk about rural focus, farm distress, capex, stimulus, maybe even NPA, though it is actually last year's story. So he may touch about all this, but this will be more for people like me who would like to read about all these, you know, macroeconomic data. For the market, I think the growth number and whatever he says about GST forecast, you know, tax forecast could be helpful.
Okay, hectic week lined up. You also have the two-day FOMC policy that kicks off tomorrow. So global and local cues, abundance of that. Let's take a look at what our wise experts have to say as we head into trade this Monday morning. Andrew Garthwaite of Credit Suisse says the potential surprises he sees for 2018 include a 25% melt-up in the S&P 500. Credit Suisse core view is that the S&P 500 will rise to 3,000 by the end of the year. Secondly, he adds, Euro area GDP growth ends up being above 3%, and the Credit Suisse core view is that Euro area will see a 2.5% GDP growth versus the consensus view of 2.2%. He also says the third surprise could be that the Euro appreciates to 1.35 to the dollar. The Credit Suisse core view is that the Euro will see modest appreciation. He adds another potential surprise for 2018 could be that Chinese GDP growth slows down to sub 6% in 2018, and the Credit Suisse core view is that the Chinese GDP will slow to 6.5%. Finally, Andrew says another surprise could be that Japanese equities end up underperforming global equities, and the Credit Suisse core view is that Japan will outperform in dollar terms.
Okay, so and Credit Suisse, those are not views you can take very lightly. It's an organization that has got many themes right. Let's get you some money market views. Not the most important view today. Ramit Brahmapat of Veracity says the rupee will remain under pressure on the back of a strong dollar. He expects the spot USD INR pair to trade in range of 63.50, 63.80. People will take it with both hands because the way in which the rupee was racing towards 63 on the back of a trade deficit was not good news. A strong dollar, at the moment at least, will take off some froth.
Okay, let's talk about the bonds then. Ajay Magnolia of Edelweiss says, as US Treasury yields and crude prices remain elevated, the domestic bond market is unlikely to see any significant change from the current trend. He says participants are expected to remain on the sidelines ahead of the budget and expects the 10-year benchmark bond yield to trade in a range of 7.29 to 7.33% today.
Okay, then let's talk about the global markets. Here's Mangalam with the world view.
Just like the sporting action over the weekend, no complaints whatsoever coming in from the globe. 225 points on the Dow, yet another record high for both the S&P as well as the Nasdaq. And this comes by on the back of strong earnings. So over the weekend, or rather on Friday, we got earnings from Honeywell, Intel, Rockwell, all of them beating estimates. With that, they've added to the list of companies that have beat estimates. So far in the S&P 500, 80% companies have beat revenue estimates, 82% companies have beat profit estimates. In fact, this beat is the best over the last 5 years. That's what analysts believe. The US GDP growth, that came in at 2.6% versus expectations of 3%, so we'll keep an eye out on that. But the USD, despite a bit of recovery, still closer to the 3-year lows. In the European region, again, all of that green. UK GDP grew at about 0.5%, and good numbers coming in from luxury maker Louis Vuitton, and that stock was up. As a result of that, the other luxury companies were up as well. Come to Asia, all of them in the green as we speak, and the SGX Nifty indicates a bumper start.
Okay, thank you very much for all that, Mangalam. And now to the big CNBC exclusive, very rare. US President Donald Trump spoke to CNBC's Joe Kernan, and he said that he's in favor of a strong dollar. And that's the trajectory he expects the greenback to take. Here's a slice of that conversation. Let me just warn you that US governments always say strong dollar and work for a weak dollar. Listen in to what the president had to say.
You move more to the center on immigration?
I don't think the Democrats would shut it down again.
You don't think they'll do it?
No, because you look at every poll, it said they made a mistake.
Where's the movement going to come?
I don't want to say Schumer got badly beaten. Why should I do that? I'm negotiating with someone. I'm not going to say he got badly beaten, but you look at what happened. The people want security. They want DACA taken care of.
Yeah.
But more importantly, they want security. They want the border strong. They want to have a strong border. They don't want to have MS-13 coming into our cities. You know how many of these people we're getting out? These are horrible, horrible human beings. And they came here as horrible human beings. And Joe, it sounds terrible. They don't shoot somebody. They cut them up into little pieces because it's more painful. I don't want them. We are taking them out by the thousands, by the thousands. We don't want them coming in, but we're going to take care of DACA. Nobody wants to take care of DACA more than myself and the Republican Party. And the Republican Party is unified at a level that Paul Ryan called me the other day. He said, I have to tell you, Mr. President, I've been here for a long time, and I've been a part of the Republican Party, and I've been watching it for a long time. For many decades, I've never seen the Republican Party unified like it is under your presidency. And that was Paul Ryan, and I thought that was a very nice statement. Very nice statement, and I think Mitch McConnell actually feels the same way. We want to do what's right, and we're going to do what's right, and we're going to solve the DACA problem. And I don't think the Democrats would want to pull another shutdown, but we'll get it solved. And if we need a little more time, we'll take a little more time. I want to get the problem solved correctly.
The big budget week, and the question we're asking is, will the government pump prime the economy, or are they looking at fiscal consolidation? Of course, that question will be answered at the end of the week. Till then, let's look at the stocks you need to focus on with CNBC TV18's list of top 10 stocks to watch for the day. Here's our entire research team now. Morning to all of you. Anuj, what are you looking at?
So, ICICI Bank, Sonia, my sense is it's now the new leader for the near-term leader for the Bank Nifty. It's seen massive delivery buying for last 10 days, up 15% last month at a new 52-week high. Though I do believe that you are better off in IT right now than banks. IT is in a bigger bull market than banks. But for those looking at the Bank Nifty, I think ICICI Bank could be the one to track. I spoke about Group Finance last week at some point, and you had that massive rally on that stock. It resumed its rally after a 2-day consolidation. It's the most expensive housing finance stock. I think even more expensive than HDFC. I could be wrong, but there's been some buying in Group Finance for sure. And finally, a small stock that I'm watching out for is BPL, because there's a report that the government is considering import duty hike on medical devices. The only way to play that stock is via BPL. That, of course, erstwhile TV company is now a medical device company. So, that stock was up 8% on Thursday. Sorry, Friday we were not trading, but it's 9% from its peak. So that could be an interesting stock.
Okay, thanks for putting that on the table. But my sense is, in terms of earnings, JSPL would be one stock that the market will really like. Our stock of the morning, Nigel, JSPL.
Well,
Very good set of numbers, Lata. As you said, coming in for GSPL, the street was bracing for a good set. It was a very, very good set. The operating profit came in at around 1,600 crores. Now, that's 1.7 times their finance cost. There was a time when the operating profit used to be equal to the finance cost, and that's what led to the net loss coming now down to only around 250 crores approximately. Steel business, that did very, very well. Pellet realizations are up close to around 30%. And in addition to that, we had higher PLFs coming in from JPL, the Jindal Power, though in fact there was some margin compression there. Even their Oman business is doing very, very well. It recorded its best ever EBITDA, and now the street is looking at a possible listing of the Oman business. Credit Suisse, though, they haven't changed their target price. They said the numbers would have beat on all expectations, and in fact the target price is still at around 150 rupees. They'll be listening to the con call before they revise that. Finally, what are the key triggers going ahead? The QIP that they have spoken about, and secondly, the listing of the Oman business. The stock opens up in the green.
Okay, Nigel, thanks a lot for that. Well, GSPL's numbers looked good, and DMart's numbers also looked quite good, Mangala.
That's absolutely right, Anuj. Stellar set of numbers. The stock's been consolidating between 1100 to 1200 over the last 3-4 months. Can see it in the fair amount of green today because the revenue growth 22.6%, coming after 36, 26.5, 22.6%. Some would say it's optically lower. Again, it is only optically lower because one, it's coming on the back of a strong base, and secondly, the company sells a lot of FMCG products and they had revised their prices lower. So 22.6% revenue growth is not bad at all. In fact, it is good. As a result of that, we saw the EBITDA. That one grew by 46%. And the net profit grew by 66%. One would argue about valuations, but one can't argue about 65, 66% growth on the bottom line. The company added 5 stores this quarter. More interestingly, what they've done is they've acquired the balance of their Avenue e-commerce business, which is the DMart Reddy, and that is expanding a lot. The message that this sends out is the fact that they have a workable business model going ahead. So this is a positive. On top of that, we have HSBC, who had a hold rating on the stock. They've upgraded it to a buy, and the target price jumped from 900 to 1600. One can talk about valuations, but this sort of growth, no one's selling DMart.
Okay, clearly buying rather the DMart stores. So many new stores we've seen in and around where we live as well. But Avenue Supermarts and JSPL are stocks of the day. But that doesn't mean there were other stocks that didn't give good numbers. In fact, great numbers coming in from a lot of the NBFCs as well. Abhishek is here to tell us about Shriram Transport. Abhishek?
Well, Sonia, CV sales have been strong in Q3 that we saw across manufacturers, and that has been seen in Shriram Transport's numbers, wherein the disbursement crossed the 13,300 mark, and this is at all-time high quarterly disbursement for Shriram Transport. Another ratio that I obviously figure in Shriram Transport is the disbursement to AUM. How much of your disbursement is going into the AUM? And that's at 34%. This reminds me of 2010-11 when the rally in Shriram Transport was really strong, and that disbursement to AUM ratio was above 30%. So right from single digit, that is at 5.25 in Q2 FY17, that has improved. So AUM growth also, the loan growth has been pretty strong at 18%, and that's a 4-quarter high, while gross NPA ratio is the lowest in last 4 quarters. Net interest margin has remained stable at 7.48, while net earnings is slightly lower than post because of higher OPEX. Expect the stock to do well in trade today.
All right, thanks a lot for that. Sonia, Maruti, numbers flat, but royalty will be the saver?
Yes, I expect the stock to be in the green today because the numbers looked good. They were in line with street expectations. The operational performance was good. As you rightly pointed out, the royalty rates to Suzuki will be revised downwards, which is a positive. They haven't given how much the quantum will be revised downwards, but currently it's about 5.5 to 6%. Even if it's brought down by about 0.5%, Credit Suisse says that they forecast a 3 to 5% increase in earnings because of that.
Oh, right, and that's a big boy. Ekta, what were the Dr. Reddy's takeaways?
Well, you know, Lata, I expect the stock to be in the red today because the management on the commentary on the conference call did mention that 3 of their drugs, Copaxone, Suboxone, as well as NuvaRing generic, as well as Aloxi generic, 4 drugs in total, will see delays as compared to what their expectations were earlier. Combine this with the US FDA issues that they still have outstanding, I expect the stock to probably be pressured today. In fact, I think we can listen into the management as well.
In Canada, we have been able to launch azacitidine now, which is the first generics to launch there. So that will also provide some growth. So those are the avenues you have to look for. Copaxone, we have got queries on the DMF, so we'll have to respond to those queries now. So we are looking for somewhere in FY19 if Copaxone launch could be there.
All right, that's the word coming in from the Dr. Reddy's management. But I think it's a season of NBFCs. So many in focus today. Canfin Homes is something that Abhishek is looking at. Abhishek, why is that?
Well, Sonia, last week they met investors, and this is like on the listed entities, we have Kotak Mahindra Bank, RBL Bank and SDFC Limited. While amongst private equity players, they have met Warburg Pincus, Baring Private, Temasek, KKR India, Bain Capital amongst the private, and this is to do with their Canara Bank stake in Canfin Homes that they are doing the investors round. Back to you.
Okay, Canfin Homes has already responded to that, but we could see more of it. So Ekta, back to you again. TVs and Biocon.
Well, for Divi's Labs, I expect the stock to be flattish to maybe a little bit red because the revenue was up around 6%, margins declined to 31% versus 38%, profit down 16%. But the reason the street is going to forgive the company this time round is probably because of the kind of remediation that they had seen on Unit 2. And once that stabilizes, they expect earnings to pick up. For Biocon, they've received European regulator approval in terms of a positive opinion for their biosimilar insulin glargine, which they have filed along with Mylan in the European markets, and I expect the stock to be in the green on account of that, because this positive opinion basically recommends that the European regulators could probably give a go-ahead to this particular biosimilar. Big positive for Biocon.
Okay, big positive for Biocon. Let's move on quickly. Many more stocks to cover. Shriram, City and LIC Housing also came out with numbers. Abhishek, how do they look?
Well, Sonia, loan growth has been coming down, 18.5% to now about 15.5%. So there has been a decline in loan growth. While, net interest margin is at 5-quarter high. So that is taking care of your credit cost and increasing gross NPA. Gross NPA has been increasing amount-wise, but ratio-wise, it has fallen to about 6.77 versus 6.91%. Expect the stock to be in green today. But LIC Housing Finance, loan growth remains steady. The net interest margin is at 12-quarter low at 2.33%. That's a niggling worry because yields on the pure vanilla housing finance is under pressure due to competition from banks also. Gross NPA also has spiked up to 0.87%, which is at 12-quarter high. But analysts say that, the stock has corrected about 23 to 25% in last 6 months, making the valuations very attractive. So expect the stock to be in green today.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for that. Persistent Systems numbers were good. Ronit, tell us more.
Yeah, so strong set of numbers coming in a seasonally weak quarter for Persistent Systems. The revenue was up by 4%, largely led by the Alliance division. That's where the growth came in. Moving on to the margins, they came 210 basis points higher, largely led by operational efficiencies kicking in. Now, moving on in dollar terms, the revenue was up by close to 3.8%, and the Alliance division, the revenue was up 13%, as well as the EBIT, that where the kicker came around 41% higher. So on the back of these good numbers, expect the stock to be in the red today, green today.
Okay, thanks a lot. Midcap IT has done well anyway, so Persistent would be the stock to track. But Mangalam, what about Tata Coffee?
No fireworks in the numbers, Anuj, but the tax cut in the US is what boosted the net profits. So 6% cuts in the EBITDA, 8% cut on the revenue front, and the net profit before tax is actually down about 10%. But if you adjust for the tax credit that they got, remember the US federal tax rate cuts has caused them a 52.5 crore credit coming in from there, and because of which we're seeing the net profit growth of about 106%. So the street will choose to ignore the weak operational performance because there are a lot more triggers as well. They have the huge capex and the expectation of Tata Group companies' simplification. So let's see, expect the stock to be in the green today.
Okay, expect the stock to be in the green, but many more stocks that will be in focus. Sonal joins in. She'll give us a list of that. Sonal?
A lot of stocks that I have on my radar today. I'll start with the earnings that came over the weekend. Cocoa Camlin, good set of numbers. They reported a revenue increase of around 12%, but they reported a profit this time versus a loss last quarter. So expect that stock to be in green. Bhagaria Industries, strong set of numbers. The EBITDA went up by 152%. The operating profit margin expanded by 1,500 basis points. All this leading to a profit increase of 133%. The other stock I'm watching is Sharda Cropchem, where the revenue came in higher by 34%, but the gross margins, they contracted by 600 basis points, majorly because the raw material prices from China increased, all this leading to a profit decline of around 41%. So expect that stock to be in red. The other stock is Methanalloys. The revenue came in higher by 72%. Even the EBITDA was higher by 30%. So expect that stock to be in green. Now moving on to the other stocks. Now newspaper reports indicate that Vedanta, it has bagged 2 bauxite mines in Odisha that have reserves of 15 million tons of bauxite. So that is good for the company and expect the stock to be in green. There are other reports that EBIX, that is a London-based investor that is in race to acquire Educom Solutions. Now remember, this deal will value the company at below 300 crores, which is 90% below the 3,000 crore amount that the company owes to its lenders. So this is some respite for the company. Other stock that I'm focusing on today is Vakrangi, which has announced alliance with Sinistan Digital Private Limited to offer free and offline videos to citizens from Vakrangi Cranes. So all these stocks in focus today.
Okay, guys, thanks so much for that. So many stocks to digest. Here's a quick recap of our top stocks. Expected to gain today: JSPL, Avenue Supermart, Shriram Transport, ICICI Bank, Group Finance, BPL, Maruti, Canfin Homes, Biocon, Shriram City Union, LIC Housing Finance, Persistent Systems, Tata Coffee, Kokuyu Camlin, Bhagieria Industries, Methan Alloys, Vedanta, Educom Solutions and Vakrangi. While stocks that could be under pressure today: Dr. Reddy's, Divi's Labs and Sharda Crop Care.
Yeah, I think Vakrangi actually could be under pressure today because, there was this news over the weekend, about some regulatory
SEBI
issues.
scanner, under the SEBI scanner.
Under the SEBI scanner, Vakrangi is. I think that could override this news.
Absolutely override. Regulatory news.
Yeah, because so I thought Vakrangi would be in red, but anyway, we'll
the news is that Vakrangi, which is the largest enrollment agency for UIDAI, has carried out 50 million Aadhaar enrollments, and those enrollments have come under the SEBI scanner for alleged price and volume manipulation of its own. Yeah.